Oh, hi. Welcome to Aquata Zoo, where we like to nerd out over all things zoo and aquarium related. I'm l.semple, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about managing perceptions in the workplace. I went to a conference recently, and there was one talk that really kind of got my brain moving about perception specifically. We can have all the good intentions in the world, but then when we do whatever actions we believe are right to fit in line with our intentions, and it doesn't pan out quite the way we think it would, and then we've got somebody who's perceiving our actions, because that's all they have to judge by, right? They can believe that you have good intentions, but what they really are looking at is the behavior, and they perceive something very different than what your intentions actually were. There's a disconnect, there's a problem, and it's probably good to talk about that. So I guess a good place to start is just to say we can have all the good intentions. That's how we judge ourselves and what we're doing, right? But when other people are perceiving our actions, they don't know what's going on in our brain, And so they only have our behaviors and the things that we do, our actions, to guess at what we're aiming to do and to figure out why we're here, what we're doing, why we're doing that. If our actions say one thing to them, even though they don't know what our intentions are, they could very well make a story up in their minds. And as for all intents and purposes, that's true. It just really got me thinking about perception from many different angles. So, as far as it goes in the workplace, if you are just an employee, a team member doing your thing, understand how you're being perceived. Be aware of how you're being perceived. That might take some time. It might take some effort. You might have to do some listening. You might have to read some body language and that kind of thing to get a feeling for what people are thinking of you. If you don't know, it's also appropriate to ask, if anybody has any pointers for how you can improve. That's a great thing to ask someone, right? And it also, helps break the ice between you and gets you some bonus points for, looking for that feedback and asking for advice. That's just a relationship builder. So if people are reading in your behavior something and your intent is completely different when you ask them how you can improve, they're giving you feedback that doesn't seem to fit, that's when it's good to know about how you're being perceived, right? And how you can make changes to be perceived in the way that you intend to. Now, a lot of this kind of boils down to what most people would describe as office politics, right? It is, but it's not. I know that people really want to avoid office politics, which I understand. I totally get it. A lot of office politics can be toxic. It can be really worrisome, It can really be a weight on an already busy mind, right? But understanding how you're being perceived in your office or workplace kind of environment will really help you understand what your future with this organization is going to look like. Whether you're trying to climb the ladder or not, it's good to know. Like, this is helpful information to help you figure out what you want to do for your best benefit. I really wish I would have caught on to this kind of thing sooner, but I was at a workplace for a long time at one point, and I did not put a lot of weight into what people thought of me. I wasn't into office politics. There were some people in my group that were. I was not about that life, and it turned out to kind of bite me in the butt a little bit. As it was happening, I was kind of flabbergasted by what was going on because, I was getting passed over for promotions or for, opportunities, even though I had the history, I had the knowledge, I had the tenure, I had all of these things. It would make sense to me logically, because I'm a logical type person, that I would be next in line to do some of these things or have some of these opportunities. It turned out to not be the case. Mostly because of office politics, I was not aware of how I was being perceived, which influenced my career path with that organization. And I chose not to be aware of it at the time. I kicked myself about that. Granted, in the end, it was all okay. Everything worked out fine. I'm in a different place, and I know that I would not have gone far with that organization And it's okay. I'm not mad about it. But I do wish that I had been paying more attention because I could have saved myself sooner, if that makes sense. So in my case, I didn't really put a lot of emphasis into being perceived as doing anything special beyond working really hard and doing my job well, right? And in theory, that makes sense as to what you're there to do, right? I was hired for this position, I'm doing the work, and I'm doing it well. But I did not put a lot of time and effort into making sure that my supervisor knew exactly what I was doing, how I was doing it, if I was struggling. All they saw was that tasks were getting done eventually. And then we move on. So it's more of a I'm doing what I'm expected to do, but they have no idea if I'm doing it well. You know what I mean? Like I knew I'm doing it well, and that was good enough for me. But my boss also needed to know that I was doing it well so that they could have me in mind for future opportunities and things like that. Years of what I called like flying under the radar and just like trying not to cause too much of a stir and just doing my job, doing it well, being very steady, being very reliable, then caused me a shock when the leadership changed and my new supervisor did not know much about me and didn't know what I was dealing with because I really hadn't said anything and just didn't know how I operated. And so all they had to go off of was the behavior that they saw, which was me just being quiet and, running my day-to-day work. I was partnered up with someone else who was very much the opposite, was more of a showboat type person, wanted to make sure that people were aware that they were doing great things. And we were all doing great things. I have nothing against that. That's totally fine. However, when I got sat down during a review at one point, and the supervisor asked me, why aren't you more like this other person who is getting all of these things done? And I said, listen, I'm also getting those things done. We're doing the same work. I'm just not screaming about it. But this person that I was talking to, my new supervisor, was more of a showboaty kind of person who resonated with that sort of messaging. And so because I wasn't screaming all of my accomplishments to the sky, they had no idea what I was doing. Me being steady and reliable and just doing the things day to day, trying to keep quiet and not rock the boat, was not doing me any favors because they basically saw nothing of my work. It was being overshadowed by somebody who was louder, more showy than I was. And while that didn't bother me, it did hurt my chance at opportunities. That leader was not among the best. Quite possibly one of the worst that I've ever had. But it doesn't matter because a lot of that issue rested with me because I did not pay attention to the perception of my work and how it was being read and what they thought my intent was with the work that I was doing. While I was completely fine with just doing my work and not really being recognized massively for it. I'm not a center of attention kind of person anyway, but just being able to do the work and knowing that I did it well was good enough for me. And it shouldn't have been. I should have been managing the perception of my work much more than I did because it hurt me in the end. Because when it came time for opportunities and promotions and things, I was probably close to the bottom of the list. It got to the point where even though I met all of the qualifications and exceeded them, my application was not even looked at. Which, by the way, is terrible. If you're going to have a job opening and you've got internal candidates, please at least look at the application. Give them a courtesy interview if you can possibly spare the time, right? Okay, I'm off my soapbox. So yes, now that I've had time to process and think about, like, my entire career through the framework of leadership, now that I've gotten this fabulous education and all, I realize now that the issue was me, mostly, in this scenario. I wasn't managing the perception of my work. I wasn't managing the perception of me as a person, me as a coworker, me as a teammate, me as a leader. And I should have been managing that a little bit better. Which is why I wanted to say it and educate you about it. Maybe you will do better than I did. In my youth, when I was being silly and really resting more emphasis on my own opinion of myself and my own intent than I was of my teammates or my supervisors, I didn't really think about what their perception of me was. To be fair, I have a streak of stubbornness in me. I can use it for good or for not so good, I guess. In this case, I really didn't care what the supervisor thought of me because I did not respect them very much. And that's also a problem for me. That's my fault. But I didn't care what they thought, and therefore didn't care to manage the perceptions when I was doing my work. That did come to bite me in the butt, and I was surprised by it, I'll be honest, when that pass over for promotion and the loss of opportunities hit me. I was kind of shocked. I'd gotten to the point where I'd gotten used to kind of being able to take advantage of opportunities and get to go do things and have new projects and things because that's how my history had been at this organization the entire time. And it was just kind of understood that the more seniority you had and the more good work that you did, solid work that you did, the more reliable that you were, the more you were rewarded. So it surprised me very much when I was not getting those opportunities anymore. It seems clear as day to me now why I stopped getting those opportunities. It was a new supervisor who was basically starting from square one, had no idea what I was about or what I was doing, and I was not taking the time to engage them in what was happening. Just to explain, I wasn't taking a new person who was a supervisor and just writing them off right off the bat. They already worked there. They just got moved around. I knew them already, but there was history there, which is why I did not have a ton of respect for them as a leader. And so this was not a new person. I don't want anyone to think that like maybe I got passed over for a supervisor position and that I was mean to the incoming supervisor. That was not the case. And I will tell you that there are certain types of people out there who are very much willing to fill in the blanks. When they see a behavior, they will write an entire novel about why you did it and what you were thinking when you did it, which is also not right. If you're that type of person, please stop doing that. You don't know the backstory. You don't necessarily know what someone is thinking. The only person who knows what someone is thinking is them themselves. If you are assuming anything, that is your problem. Which makes it all the more important to understand who you're working with and how you manage the perception of what you're doing. Any actions that you're taking, any work that you're accomplishing, anything that you're turning in, just understand how you are being perceived by those around you. It's important for your career progression so you know where you stand, and it's important for your teammates so that they understand who you are and why you do the things you do. Why do you work like that? What are you thinking when you're doing that kind of thing? And so being willing to be self-aware and to rethink things and to ask for feedback, whether it's from a peer or a supervisor, whatever you want, or even somebody that you're supervising. That's all really good. I will say animal care people, we watch behavior all day, every day because we're taking care of animals. We're reading it in each other a lot as well. We're reading it in people, whether we realize it or not. And so understanding what the perception is will help you self-edit. It's very common for people to work slowly if they don't fully feel confident in what's happening, or if they don't feel like they have the knowledge to accomplish a task, right? And so that can be read by somebody who is perceiving that action, that slow work, as someone who doesn't care, right? And so, they take twice as long to do the task as someone else, and other people are just assuming that they don't care about the work, and therefore they're just dragging their feet because they don't like doing it, or they're dragging their feet because they don't care. It can be read in a very different way when the actual issue is that person doesn't maybe have the confidence or the knowledge to do that work quickly, They might be double checking themselves and they're not quite sure if they did it right. So they just want to take a few more minutes to make sure that they did it right. And it can be read completely differently by a coworker. If you happen to be a leader, it's really important to understand what the difference is. Because if you're going to start punishing somebody for taking too long on a task, or reassigning things to other people, overloading one group because this person doesn't seem to be able to handle the job, it's important to understand what you're dealing with. And so they may not realize how they're being perceived, but that's why it's good to talk about these things. Be transparent, have a discussion. If you've got one person who is just absolutely obsessed with the fact that they're frustrated about a teammate who's taking too long to do a task, and they have written this whole story in their head about how they don't care, how they're just dragging their feet because they don't want to do the work, so that it'll get reassigned to somebody else and they'll just have to do it. They write this whole narrative in their head that may not be the case at all. Folks like that tend to work themselves up over it as well, so that they get really upset or really angry or really super frustrated over essentially nothing because they misread what was happening. So in teams, this is really common. As a manager or as a team member, honestly, you have to be able to recognize these things and kind of calm the situation where you can. So maybe take that person who has written this novel about what's going on and just talk to them about it and ask them what they actually observed. Ask them lots of questions about it. Approach these things with curiosity, as you should do all things, right? We're just asking questions, and it's possible that this person may see the error of their ways. They may see the error of their perception of what this person is doing. And if you then approach the person who is taking too long on the task and ask what's going on, they may be able to tell you that they just don't have the confidence yet. They haven't done it enough times, or they would like for someone to watch with them or work with them while they do the task to make sure they got it right. Some people learn slower than others. That's just a natural fact. I'm very slow when I'm still trying to pick up like a daily routine kind of thing. It comes very slowly to me. I'm very herky-jerky. I've been called out for it in the past. I had a coworker who, working in animal care, I was just trying to gain the rhythm of the day. Like, I didn't go fluidly from task to task around the building because I just hadn't learned it yet. I was still kind of checking our daily list, so I knew which tasks still needed to be done, so I could like log them in my head and then go accomplish a bunch at once, which is what I was trying to do. What that was read as was that I was just killing time staring at a list and being annoying. I was called out for it, and I appreciate them just confronting me for it, even though it was very abrupt and really judgmental. The approach could have been kinder, for sure. But at least I knew what he was thinking, right? I stood in front of the list, the daily list of tasks that we had, and tried to like almost memorize the things that I could do in one pass around the building. I was trying to be efficient. And this person was already fully trained in this area that I was learning and had it down easily, didn't have to think about it, which is great for them, but I didn't have it yet. And so it usually takes me about 5 weeks of daily training to get that rhythm down. At least that's my history anyway. But yeah, this guy saw me standing at the daily task list, just staring at it for apparently too long. Too long for him. And called me out on it and said that I was being lazy and that I didn't have any initiative, right? And that I was wasting too much time just staring at this list. Sure, it was a waste of time to him. It was not a waste of time to me. Had he asked me appropriately and really just inquired as to, hey, I noticed that you're at this list a lot. Is there something wrong? Are there edits that I need to make? Or like, is it not set up correctly? Or is there something I can do to help you with the list? It was just, accusation about what I was thinking by standing there at that list, looking at things for so long in his mind. So the perception was that I was just killing time and being lazy and not taking initiative to actually get the work done. That was not my intent, and I hadn't managed that well. since that episode, I guess I have come into more of a habit of announcing kind of what I'm doing at the time. So if I feel like anyone could read what I am doing, or, as being lazy or lacking initiative, I'll just say what I'm doing right off the bat. So in the time since then, when I'm training and I'm trying to learn a new routine, I will just say, okay, give me a few minutes. I got to look at this and kind of break it down in my head and try and memorize my steps that I want to take until I've got it. It's going to take me roughly 5 weeks to get this. I just say the whole thing. And it gets to the point where people are like, fine, just do what you need to do. It's okay. You have now managed the perception that you're not being lazy. You're not lacking initiative. You just need to do things in a certain way for it to click in your brain. And you know exactly how long that's going to take, right? That's how I ended up dealing with it. So to manage your perceptions in the workplace, like I said, you can do what I did and just be very transparent about what you're doing and why. Announce that you're about to look at this list for 5 minutes. I never took that long, but announce what you're doing. Like, say something to the person who's working with you so that they understand, like, I'm not just sitting around, I'm doing this thing. A lot of times in my field, if you're on the computer, it seems like you're being lazy because we're very physical. We have to come and go. And when I had a job that was less on the computer, I would have to kind of let everyone know, I've got to write this email, I've got to do this, like, I've got to order this thing, I've got to do this and that, and then I'll be back down on the floor. So, like, they would know when to expect me roughly back in the physical part of the job, because it was partially computer work, partially on the floor working physically, right? I also want you to learn from my mistake and check in with your supervisor on a regular basis. Just to chat, just to talk about what you're working on, and be aware of how you respond to things, and be aware when you can offer a little bit more information that would really help the perception of what you're saying. So rather than just saying that you're too busy to work on a project for your supervisor, say, I'm so sorry, I'm devoting X amount of time in my day today to this project so we can get it done by the deadline that you set. Once that's done, then I can get to this other thing that you're asking me to do now. So then that really frames what you're planning on doing. So it shows that you can manage your time and that you are working on their priorities, but it gives them a chance to like reprioritize if that's necessary, So that is a very transparent way of showing them that you're working hard, that your time is valuable, and that you're trying to meet their goals. Same for if you're being introduced to something new, a new change perhaps in the way that you do things, and you don't think it's a good idea or you don't agree. Don't just say, this sucks, I don't want to do it. I mean, that might be true. But instead offer something else maybe. Show that you're kind of pondering and willing to think about it and willing maybe to test it to see, and ask for maybe a timeline and say, okay, you want us to implement this change. Can we revisit this in 2 weeks, right? So you've given it like a finite time that you're willing to do it, to try it, to see if what you think is going to go wrong is going to go wrong, and to see if it's as effective as they want to be. So then if you come back in that time frame that you've suggested, then you can give the actual feedback, and it doesn't feel like you're just being resistant to change. You're actually curious about a different solution, or maybe that'll buy you some time to think about the problem and tackle it in a different way and come up with a different solution that works for everyone, because that kind of stuff happens too. Having been the person who has been labeled multiple times that I'm resistant to change, that is not the case. I'm resistant to dumb change, but I've learned to manage that a little bit better. And honestly, my resistance to change is typically because I'm asking 1 million questions, because I always want to know the why behind it. And in some workplaces, they don't give you that, right? And so I have to like keep digging and digging and digging to find it, because I don't know, it's just the way my brain works. I need to figure out the why behind the change that you're asking me to do, so that I can kind of wrap my brain around it and possibly think of additional changes that can be made to meet those goals. Or if I see that the change that you're asking me to do doesn't really pertain to the why behind it, like what you're actually trying to shift, then I can work with that better, I guess. I can figure something out. So I have been labeled resistant to change. That was the perception of me for a very long time. And I don't know, it might still be. I don't think it is. But it happens because I just ask a lot of questions and I have not been so great at communicating the right way or in the most effective way to get the information that I need and or to communicate my willingness to try things out and my concern about things failing. I haven't communicated that well in the past. So just understand when you're speaking up and you're trying to figure out what your workday is looking like and what you're going to do and when you're being asked to do something, how you handle that, the words that you say and the actions that you execute, I guess, are the way that people have to judge you, to perceive you. It's all about your actions, even though your intent is entirely yours. They're not in your brain thinking your thoughts, you know what I mean? All they have to work off of is what you're giving them as far as the words that you say, the actions, and what you produce, basically. So it's all about the action for perception. It's all about your thinking and your intent for you. So being aware of how you're being perceived can help you because it gives you a good reference for how you should steer your own career. Like, do it for you. Don't do it for anybody else. What I made the mistake of early in my career was not caring what other people thought of me because I knew I was doing good things, right? That was good enough for me. I didn't need anybody to pat me on the back and tell me I was doing a good job. It's not about that. It's a little bit about those office politics that we all dislike. I'm not very good at it, I'll be honest with you. But managing that perception of what you're doing, what you're up to, how you're executing your work does matter because when opportunities arise, you may miss out because you haven't managed your perception well. So I don't want anybody to sell themselves short because you're capable of great things and everyone should know it. Don't do what I did. I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, and I still make mistakes now. I'm not to be thinking that I'm really, really good at everything now. I'm not, but at least I'm kind of more aware of it. I thought I was self-aware before. I was not. Maybe I'm still not, but I'm working on it. It's a daily battle. I know that I have good intent and that I'm doing things for the right reasons, but my words and my actions were not communicating that effectively, and it cost me, you know? And so I don't want that to happen to anybody else. I don't want anybody to be surprised by what somebody says to them as to how they're being perceived, because it really hurts your feelings. Trust me. You think of yourself in one certain way, and then everybody else is letting you know that they think of you differently. And that's not what you meant. Like, that's not what your intent was. And so that is kind of a jarring reality. So get out there and manage the perception. Understand what people are thinking of you when working with you, of your work and your style and your words, because I don't want you to miscommunicate what you're trying to do. Be transparent. Have these conversations. Lead with questions. Build your relationships so that people really understand you and they think of you when opportunities that would be really fitting for you come up. It's great. So if you have any questions about that or any other leadership and management things or zoo and aquarium stuff, you can write it up in an email and send it to me at aquatazoo@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you do, don't forget you can follow or subscribe on your podcast player of choice. That way you'll get all of that sweet, sweet content as soon as it releases. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can find me at patreon.com/aquatazoo. And if you're looking to take a vacation and you don't know where to start, I happen to be a personal vacation advisor with Magical Vacation Planner, and I would love to help you out. It does not cost you anything extra. The links are in the show notes. Okay. Thanks for listening. I heart your faces. Okay, bye.